Hello, and welcome to Not the Anthropocene Reviewed, a podcast where we review different aspects of the human-centered planet on a 5-star scale. I am not John Green, and today I'm going to be reviewing cheat codes and imposter syndrome. For those who are understandably confused about what's going on right now, The Anthropocene Reviewed is a podcast hosted by author and YouTuber John Green, where he reviews different things on a 5-star scale while going off on tangents and telling stories. I enjoy it a lot, so much so that I decided to, join in. I wasn't sure if fan episodes of podcasts are like a thing in the same way that fan art and fan fiction is, and so worried that I might have accidentally had an original idea, I did a quick Google search, and I was relieved to find that the Welcome to Night Vale fandom had gotten there well ahead of me, thank God. To my regular audience, don't worry, this is a one-off thing. I'm not branching out into a new career of fan podcast YouTubing, I just need a little break after my last big project. Anyway, cheat codes. Up, up, down, down, left, right, BA. If you've ever read a BuzzFeed article of gaming trivia, you will know that these are the inputs for the Konami code, possibly the most famous cheat code in the world. It was first implemented into the home version of the 1985 arcade game Gradius, but became famous for its inclusion in the 1987 game Contra. Contra and Gradius are both monstrously difficult video games. They were designed to be played in the arcades, and therefore had to manage the balancing act of being fun to play, while also extracting as many coins and quarters from the pockets of the arcade's customers as possible. The influence of the arcade era is keenly in evidence in the tropes of video game design. Systems such as limited lives and continues and difficult boss fights before advancing to the next level all came about as measures to increase the coin extracting efficiency of each expensive arcade machine. It was exploitative and rather frustrating, but for most people it was the only way to play video games, and so they came, quarters in hand. In modern times, the legacy of the arcade can be found in the way games like Overwatch or the mobile game Fire Emblem Heroes use the addictive properties of gambling mechanics to encourage their players to spend money on randomized loot crates and hero summonings. Gotta get those dimes and quarters, after all. Anyway, the Konami code. This code was invented by Katsuhisa Hashimoto, a developer at the Japanese game studio Konami, tasked with creating the home console version of Gradius. As he was testing out the game for bugs and glitches, the arcade-level difficulty kept causing him problems, and so he implemented into the game a sequence of inputs that was easy to remember, but complicated enough that players wouldn't enter them accidentally. Up, up, down, down, left, right, BA. The code gave the player a full set of power-ups, and with this advantage, Hashimoto was able to finish testing the game. Other developers at the studio liked the idea and implemented the same code into their own projects, making the code a hallmark of Konami games. The code has gone on to become something of a game culture icon, appearing in over 100 games and being referenced on everything from webcomics to Hollywood movies. It was even included on the website for the new Canadian $10 bill in 2017. Entering the code on the website would cause your browser to play the national anthem and display fireworks. And this is what cheat codes were once upon a time. Typically, they were implemented by developers to help them test their games, and then players would stumble on them by accident and share them around amongst each other, or they would hear about them through a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend who knew someone who knew one of the developers. Of course, this also led to a lot of hoaxes and fake rumors about special codes and game secrets, stereotypically backed up by the assertion that I heard it from my uncle who works at Nintendo. I did this with my friend Sune once. We were talking about the Super Nintendo game Super Mario World, and I told him that if you could find all the different colors of Yoshis and fly them to a special place in the final level, you could get the magical glowing white Yoshi, which can fly and shoot fireballs, and it's invincible, even without a power star. It's true, I told him. My brother showed it to me. I didn't have an uncle who worked for Nintendo, but my brother was older and cooler than both of us, and so he bought the story. I don't know if he ever found out I was lying to seem cool, but sometimes I imagine that he's still searching, thin, bearded, and Ahab-like for the great white Yoshi that got away. As for me, I got my comeuppance in the late 90s when I spent almost 30 hours trying to find a way to bring Ares back to life on Disc 3 of Final Fantasy VII. I knew it was possible because I'd found instructions online from a guy who had an uncle who worked at Squaresoft. The history of cheat codes is a history of unintended consequences. They began as convenient developer backdoors and ended up spawning memes, hoaxes, and urban legends and becoming a part of what is now become known as gaming culture. But there's another, and I think arguably more important aspect to cheat codes, and that's accessibility. When you're a 10-year-old kid trying to play Contra on your Nintendo Entertainment System for the first time, most of the game is essentially unavailable to you. Contra is legendarily punishing, and you will likely hit game over multiple times before even making it through the first level. Even at 30 years old, with decades of gaming experience, I can't make it through more than a few levels before running out of lives. But up, down, left, right, BA, and suddenly you have 30 instead of 3 lives to play with, which doesn't guarantee a win, but it means a lot more opportunities to fail, to practice each level before hitting game over and being taken back to the title screen. The game becomes accessible. You get to have an experience that would otherwise be locked away from you due to the difficulty of participation. Gaming is for everyone. I don't think that's particularly moralistic to say, but for people with disabilities, it can be a really difficult hobby to participate in at all. If you're missing a limb, or even a finger, or if you have an injury, or arthritis, or any one of hundreds of other major and minor conditions or disabilities, the fiddly and complicated controls of modern video games can be a nightmare to navigate, especially in games that rely on quick reflexes or complex controller movements to play correctly. And so, in an effort to make their games more accessible, modern game developers have started implementing options to compensate. Reduced difficulty, infinite health, invulnerability, unlimited extra jumps in midair. Things which once upon a time you had to enter secret cheat codes to enable have become menu options. They are for people who need them, or for those who want a stress-free experience from their entertainment. And really, I don't think this is any different than what Katsuhisa Hashimoto did in 1986 when he made Gradius a little easier for himself so he could test it properly, or what YRock1234 did in 2012 when he released a mod that removes all the giant spiders from the popular video game Skyrim so people with arachnophobia can play it without having their leisure time ruined by confrontation with their worst, most irrational fear. We used to call them cheat codes because they let us cheat systems designed to wring quarters out of arcade goers. Today, they give us a way to cheat the limits of our imperfect human bodies. For that reason, I give cheat codes 6 stars. Before we move on, I want to tell you about the sponsor for this episode. Not the Anthropocene Reviewed is sponsored by Nothing. Nothing is the safe, convenient, and above all, unavoidable way to end your tenure as a conscious entity in the material universe. To celebrate an infinite eternity of not being in business, Nothing, and its exciting, fashionable line of nothingness, is offering a 30% bonus for listeners of Not the Anthropocene Reviewed. To claim it, simply go to a dark, deserted crossroads on a clear night and stare into the infinite void of the universe. Try to forget how small we all are. Try to forget how brief all of this really is. Try to remember that in spite of the crushing eternity of existence, humans invented love, and you are loved. Thanks to Nothing for sponsoring this episode. Nothing. It's what's inevitable. So, imposter syndrome. The term imposter syndrome was coined in 1978 in an article called The Imposter Phenomenon in High-Achieving Women, Dynamics and Therapeutic Intervention by Dr. Pauline R. Clance and Dr. Suzanne A. Aimee. In their definition, it is characterized as an inability to internalize success. That is, a person might be highly competent and consistently successful in their endeavors, but will permanently feel as though they're just barely scraping by on luck and deception. In their paper, Doctors Clance and Aimee investigated it as a phenomenon amongst high-achieving women in the workplace, but in the 40 years since that original paper, imposter syndrome has been found to occur in pretty much every possible demographic. It's kind of a bad way to start the segment, though. It's like I'm opening with the dictionary defines imposter syndrome as just don't say shit that people can just Google. Like it's not useful. Say something useful instead. Like it needs to be. I shouldn't just regurgitate facts about whatever because like nobody wants to listen to that. This is supposed to be like a relaxation project after the last thing. Why would I even pick this topic? This affects people. People suffer from this. This is serious. My friends suffer from this. You can't just sit down and randomly word vomit about it. If you're doing this, it has to be properly researched. Otherwise, what the hell is even the point? This was a bad idea. It was a bad idea from the start, and I shouldn't have wasted my time. I have other projects. I've got shit to do that people actually want me to do. I've got commissions. Like, I'm behind. I should be working on that. got lucky. When I got to do this for a living, I got lucky, and I have to earn that. I have to earn that. I can't just screw around with random just because I want to do something. I've got to do real work. I've got to grow up. Just grow up. Grow up. Get your shit together, you stupid asshole. You're going to screw this up. You're going to screw it up. You're going to screw all of this up. You've been handed an opportunity, and you're going to screw it up because you can't grow up. Take it seriously. When this is gone, it's not coming back. Just delete it. Just delete it. Just delete this shit. Go do some real work and stop being such a fuck up and take some goddamn responsibility for once. Stop pretending like you're so smart and your opinions matter. Do some real work. Try not to be such a bad fucking person. Anyway, I give Imposter Syndrome 1 star. Thanks for listening to Not the Anthropocene Reviewed. If you'd like to listen to some of the real episodes of the excellent podcast that all of this nonsense was based on, there's a link down in the description. If you'd like to subscribe to this YouTube channel, I'd be very grateful, although I should warn you that most of what's on here isn't this. For one thing, most of the other things on this channel have actual video and tend to be even more about video games. If you want to support this channel on Patreon, then I would be very grateful, and you should feel free to go into the comments and tell me not to do something like this ever again. Thank you all very much for listening.